Primordial Radio.
Primordial Radio, it is my delight and pleasure now to welcome to the show on this very special Friday evening as we are celebrating the release of the new album from Alter Bridge, Pawns and Kings. We're going to be playing the album in full with Myles and Mark from the band. Guys, how you doing?
How are you, man? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, all good, guys, all good. So, do you ever get a chance to breathe or take a break or anything? Because I was looking at the amount of projects and bands that you've got collectively now. I'm thinking, how do they do it?
Get rest when you're dead, man.
Yeah. So what's it like putting an Alter Bridge album together in 2022 whilst you have all of these different projects going on at the same time? It must be a lot to juggle.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think I'm speaking for myself, probably the hardest part is just because of the amount of records we've put out together and with our various projects. As a singer, the amount of lyrics I'm supposed to remember, it's now crossed the threshold. It's impossible. So, it's just trying to store those hundreds of songs in this tiny little brain that I have. That's probably the hardest part.
And for yourself, Mark, as well, you've been very busy with the release. Prior to this, one with the releases was the project you did, the Sinatra project, which was absolutely fantastic for such a great cause as well. How did it feel to do that?
That was amazing. It was one of the highlights of my career for sure. It was one of those passion projects that my heart was totally into it because of my daughter and raising the money for Down syndrome. But be able to play with Frank Sinatra's touring band was just stepping in that room for the first time. I'll never forget how amazing it was.
I can imagine a sense of imposter syndrome in front of Sinatra's band.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But they, after our first session, they made me feel real welcome. And they, they actually thanked me for getting them back together and reigniting their passion for music. So it's been awesome.
Fantastic. So today on the release of the new album, Pawns and Kings, we're going to be playing this album in full from start to finish. So we're going to open with track 1, This Is War, which, I was kind of wondering on that title is, prior, war was something I guess maybe previously we think of like in the past, but it's right on the continent, still in Europe now. Does it have a different feeling, like a title like that in your minds with a song like This Is War?
Yeah, well, interesting enough, that song, the genesis of it occurred prior to all of that. So, it was one of the first concepts that came about for this record. And it was, I think it was last December. And it was really the term war, This Is War, is really referring to internal war and kind of trying to fight it's an internal struggle. But then, fast forward a couple months later and suddenly things changed dramatically in the world. And there was a concern about that. It's like, oh no, is this going to be taken as some sort of
out of context sort of thing? Yeah.
It was just so easy to sing. We're like, well, we'll keep the title.
Yeah. I want more.
I want more.
Yeah, it rhymes.
We're going to change it right now.
Let's do it. Track 1, This Is War. Primordial Radio, you are listening to the album playback of Alter Bridge, Pawns and Kings, with Myles and Mark from the band. That was track 2 from the album, Dead Among the Living, which very much does sound like it could be taken from The Walking Dead, Resident Evil. What's the ultimately the feeling and the inspiration behind that track?
Initially, the riffs and the music, I had in mind to kind of bring a sound that Alter Bridge has had for years. We have songs like Come to Life and Still Remains, and the other side that had this drop B tuning that has this specific sound to it that I think is a big part of Alter Bridge's sound. So I think the last couple records we didn't have one of these tracks, so I wanted to tackle that musically and then hand it to Myles to deliver on the lyrics and the vocals.
Myles, you made reference earlier to the fact that lyrically it can be difficult to sort of remember everything now and all the different things that you've penned down. So when it comes to inspiration on lyrics, I kind of get the sense that you must have to be drawing really deep into the well now when penning down lyrics for an Alter Bridge album.
Yeah, but fortunately, there never seems to be a shortage of inspiration for whatever reason. I think just because as a human being, I'm still evolving and there's still plenty of, struggle, or also just looking around at people in my life or situations, and I don't know. It's kind of like the universe is still giving me plenty of content as far as lyrics go. So hopefully the well won't dry up anytime soon.
Well, I don't think it is drying up anytime soon. I don't think you're in any danger of that. But I guess it's that idea of constantly learning. I think sometimes we get this pretense of, oh, you went through school and college, whatever. And that's it. And it's just life now. And it's like, I'm 33 years old and I feel like I've learned more since I left education than when I was in education. Right.
Absolutely. That's when you really learn. It's funny. I actually met a guy a long time ago. And I always wanted to go to this specific music school after I went to like an initial music school. And I was like, oh, what's it like going to Berkeley? And it must be amazing. And he told me, he's like, look, man, you're doing it. You're out, you're living life. Like that's the best education, and that really stuck with me. School of Hard Knocks.
Oh, absolutely. So we're going to get into track 3 now with Silver Tongue. And the opening to this track wouldn't be amiss on something like an Exodus or an early Metallica record. Listening to heavier stuff in the mix in getting ready for this new Alter Bridge album?
Not really. Interestingly enough, that's it's like Mark and I both listen to a lot of he's discovered Frank Sinatra and the Great American Songbook. I love jazz as well and R&B and whatnot, but for whatever reason that chip is still in us, that love for aggressive riff-based music. And yeah, we feel like with Silver Tongue, it's a manifestation of that. It's kind of that it has that thing that we've tried to balance now, which is the aggressive riff, the memorable riff with a memorable melody. And so that's kind of become the hallmark of our sound. And for whatever reason, we're still lucky enough to stumble onto those ideas once in a while.
Kind of seems like as many great influences you could always take on board, different genres, different experiences of life. When it comes down to it, you still just cannot beat the best riff in the world.
Right.
It always will reign supreme. Track 3 from Pawns and Kings. This is Alter Bridge, Silver Tongue. Primordial Radio, that is Sin After Sin. Track 4 from the new album from Alter Bridge at Pawns and Kings. Absolutely delighted to be joined by Myles and Mark from the band. So guys, just tell me a little bit about that track.
Sin After Sin was actually the first idea for this record that I was working on. And I remember calling Myles and I said, I really want to work on a song that's just really slow and grinding and dark and atmospheric. And it started with the riff, the first initial riff. And, I think I wrote on that song for about 3 weeks and I had enough material for about 3 songs. Then you have to go back and decide what are the essential parts for the song. And it ended up being over 6 minutes long. But I think with Alter Bridge, specifically in this band, that we can thrive in those longer songs. I think since we wrote the song Blackbird, we like the songs that tell a big elaborate story. And as long as it doesn't seem too long, I think it's good to leave space let a song breathe.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll come on to some of the longer tracks because there's one in particular on the album, I think, that, track 7 that we'll talk about when it comes to long songs. It's interesting you reference Blackbird there too. But we'll get to track 5 now with Stay. Sort of took me by surprise. I was like, oh, it's Mark on the lead here.
Yeah, no, there's been a couple tracks, Water's Rising and Words Darker Than Their Wings, and another track, Forever Falling, that I've sang lead on. So it's I love singing. Like I always say, you're going to find me at the karaoke bar singing. It's just something I love to do. And I think for us at this point, it's helpful for if, as a singer in my own side bands, I know that if I had a little 5-minute break, my voice would feel great after that break during a live set. So I think it helps for, if we're
Myles, for you in this set, that must be, oh God, Mark, take it.
Please.
Mark, you mentioned that you'll always be the one to get up on karaoke. So everyone's got their 3 karaoke songs when they go up that they know off by heart. What are yours?
I love Dock of the Bay. I love Night Shift by the Commodores, and now anything Sinatra.
Of course. Myles, are you a karaoke person?
I'm terrified of karaoke.
That's so fascinating that you're the front man of the biggest rock band in the world, but you're terrified of karaoke.
It's weird. In fact, true story, the very last time I ever sang karaoke was with this guy, and it was on my birthday in 2008. We were promoting the Blackbird record, and we were in Baltimore, Maryland, and these guys got me completely blitzed at some bar, and they convinced me to not only sing Here I Go Again by Whitesnake, but also wear a sombrero doing it. So
see, I'm thinking, God, if that happened today, it would just be all over TikTok and so many news articles within like 5 minutes.
We're going to make it happen for you.
Oh yeah, we need to make that happen. Absolutely. Right. Let's get into track 5 now. This is Alter Bridge and Stay. Primordial Radio, you are listening to the album playback of Alter Bridge's Pawns and Kings, which is out today via Napalm Records. That was track 6 from the album. And guys, this is a song I can very much relate to. The song is called Holiday, as getting ready for my first holiday since COVID. I haven't had a holiday in 3 years. It must be a similar story for yourselves there. Do you get a chance for holidays? Because of course, in between Alter Bridge, you're doing all your other things. So do you even get holidays?
Yeah, my wife loves to travel and take the kids around, and my problem is we travel for touring constantly. So when I get home, I want to stay home. But when I get home, my wife's like, let's go to the beach. So, my wife likes to travel. So I get a lot of holidays.
And I find that when I do go on holiday, because I'm sort of always quite very switched on, always working on this, always working on that, it takes me a good while to actually switch off. Is it the same for yourselves? Do you ever really get a chance to sort of fully switch off and not think about this band or that band or music, agents, managers, all the things that can come with life being in a band?
Yeah, that's, it's interesting you should say that. That's for me personally, that's one of the hardest things. And I'm trying to evolve as a person and learn how to engage that power off button a lot quicker. But it's hard. Yeah. When you're constantly going, even like for us, like when I get home, and I walk in the door and I'm like, I'm home, and I don't know what to do with myself. I'm literally just pacing the house. My wife's like, sit down. Like, what's wrong with you? so I'm trying to get better at that. I'm hopefully.
The trick though is people like us, when you think of a holiday, you want to relax and do something you enjoy. You don't want to work, but our work is something we enjoy. So when you get off, you're like, all right, I got all this time. What am I going to do? I'm going to listen to some music or write some music or practice some music, because that's what we enjoy doing. So it's not if I go to the beach, I also want to be listening to music or strumming an acoustic guitar at the same time. So you never really leave what other people would consider our work, which is our passion.
It's such a fine balancing act, I think, because I was thinking about this earlier today in that my 10 plus years now doing music, that you can definitely have too much of a good thing. And it's important to get those balancing acts just right when it comes to life in music.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about, it's about balance with life in general. I think that's the magic word, is balance.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into track 7 now. This is an 8+ minute epic, Fable of the Silent Sun. Now, you mentioned earlier in reference to Blackbird, and I guess that song has really become such a swan song of Alter Bridge and such a staple of the set. When you initially penned down Blackbird, did you ever think it would become like the fan favorite ultimately?
Personally, I remember the day we finished that song, and we'd been chasing that song for a long time during the writing process for that record. So we finally were able to solidify it, right? And I recorded it on my laptop, went back, and that was when I would stay at Mark's house when we were working on records. And I remember listening to that rough demo, and I called him in to the room, and I was like, just sit and listen to this, because I personally felt like we'd finally kind of crossed this threshold, and we both realized that it was something special. But fast forward, 15 years later, I don't think any one of us had any idea it was going to have the staying power, and in a way was going to kind of, to some degree, define and help us figure out kind of where we were going and who we were. And it certainly made it so from an artistic standpoint, it seemed to allow us then from that point forward to engage more in epics, and our fans made it known that's the sort of thing they wanted from the band in conjunction with the shorter, memorable songs. So it's it's a very important song in the catalog.
Was it something that you noticed over time as you were playing it live? Like, oh wow, look at the response that we're getting to Blackbird. Oh, did you see that? Well, that must have been something that just got bigger and bigger as time went on that particular song.
Yeah, it's definitely a highlight of the set. A lot of our songs live have a lot of energy, and that one really dynamically shifts and gets more atmospheric. And it's probably the highlight of every night we play.
And so when you were putting together Fable of the Silent Sun, then I guess it's always the trap to be like, oh, it's got to be better than Blackbird. We got to try and compete with Blackbird. And I can't imagine you would sort of compete against yourself in that sense. So do you come at the longer epics in a slightly different way now, thinking about them differently, not just going, well, we just want to copy and paste what we did with Blackbird?
Yeah, I'll speak for myself, at least the way I try to think about the creative process, which is learning to shut off any sort of expectations and just be present. It's like, don't overthink it. Don't sit down and go, well, I got to write this or you got to do this. It's just, you learn to let it happen and just go, essentially go with the flow. And oftentimes the universe will help kind of guide you where you need to go with a given song. And with Fable of the Silent Sun, the more time that was spent essentially kind of massaging it and leaving it in the sonic incubator, it started to kind of blossom into this epic. And now we have another 8-minute play. It might be the only song that exceeds 8 minutes in our catalog. So
it's our longest song.
I think it's your new longest song, and I love that as well because it's almost against the grain of what would be sort of common thought today, where our attention spans are getting lower and shorter. Everything's got to be quicker, and then here comes Alterbridge dropping the longest song of their career. I absolutely love that. So let's do this now. Over 8 minutes long. It's absolutely epic. This is track 7 from Pawns of Kings, Fable of the Silent Sun. Primordial Radio, that is Season of the Promise, track 8 from Alterbridge's Pawns and Kings, joined by Myles and Mark from the band. Before that too, we had Fable of the Silent Sun. So this is your 7th studio album, guys, and I'm wondering, when it comes to writing, now we talked a little bit about it earlier in terms of putting the albums together, has the way in which you actually write Alterbridge albums changed? Because I'm imagining back in the early days you would have had more time to be together in a room, but is it much more communication across continents and all of this sort of things, and working kind of like how we're talking now over Zoom? Is it much more that sort of process?
Yeah, and sometimes it just has to be where we'll be writing while we're touring on another band, and that actually helps when sometimes when you're at home, other things get in the way. Yeah, if I have kids and I have responsibilities when I'm on tour with another band, I can spend all day writing. So me and Myles will write and create demos and put them on a Dropbox file so the whole band can hear it. And that's just, we share ideas. Sometimes I'll write a riff and send Myles a phone message, and just technology has really helped.
More and more from bands today. It's something that's sort of being coined as like the 3 a.m. riffs, where an idea will just come like the light bulb moment. And Myles, maybe you're in a hotel in Japan at 3 a.m. and Mark, you're back home or whatever. Is that a thing where you wake up the next morning and go, oh, we got some ideas in the Dropbox. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah, that's definitely. It's funny. The late night concept is something that oftentimes sometimes songs are inspired just by dreams. And fortunately, you can do one of two things. You can wake up in a hotel room, grab your phone and hum the idea, or grab a guitar and play it, and then, kind of leave. For me personally, I tend to like to leave those and then wake up and be a little more lucid before I'm going to send it to my writing partner and go, what do you think of this? Because I've had things happen where I document it real quick and then think this is gonna be great. I'm gonna send it right now. Check this out. And then I wake up the next day and I'm like, oh, that sucked. I'm glad I didn't send it.
Mark, you're going, well, what the hell is Myles doing here, man? Go back to bed, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. It's different. It's different the way in which bands can put albums together now. It's much more lucid and fluid, it seems, than it would have been back in the day.
Technology is definitely helpful. It's It's the way we get things done these days, for sure.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to tech, it's all about how you use it. It can be used for bad or for good. So it's how about you use it. So we're going to get into track 9. So we are getting towards the end of the album now with Last Man Standing. So just tell me a little bit about this track.
That one started out with, I was messing around with my delay pedal. I wanted to have this extreme slap back, kind of like the White Snake's Still the Night bridge kind of slap back echo thing on that verse. And then once I kind of put that part to bed, I wanted to, I think one element that we can keep adding to Alter Bridge, we always want to add new colors to our sound and what we do. And I think the progressive side of thing is an easy, the low hanging fruit like that. I think that's a sound that our fans would appreciate. So, in the pre-chorus, I wanted to add like a little 7/8 kind of time signature type of thing. And just, you want to keep people guessing. And when you're listening to a song, make them twist their head for a minute and then get back to putting the beat on the one again, or I'm sorry, putting the 4/4 back in there. But, that song is one of the songs where me and Myles both get to do leads on. And I know Myles loves the guitar solo like I like singing. So it all worked out.
Feels like a sort of like, obviously the whole album will always be collaborative, but this sort of feels like the real sort of clashing almost between Myles solo and Mark solo. It would seem from the outside looking in.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I mean, we both have, we both try and put as much as we can to each one of these songs and try to include each other as much as we can. I think that's one of the good things about Alter Bridge is when we write songs separately, we try to keep an open mind. And when we put the songs in front of the band, we want Alter Bridge to put its sound and its special brew on the song. Because if we just wrote it completely by ourselves all the time, it would just start sounding like our solo projects, I think.
There's no I in team.
So. Well, that's it. I mean, I suppose that it must be tricky, where you've got so many different things where you say it's like, you don't want to just sound like your solo stuff. You have to write stuff and then put the Alter Bridge stamp on it ultimately at some point.
Which is easy because I think that we're both very aware of once you add each guy's influence into the song, it Alter Bridgeifies it.
I like that
articulate way of saying it, but there's a certain thing that everybody brings. Like our rhythm section. Both him and I are very lucky because we have a drummer and a bass player that they have such a pocket, such a thing that only those two do, and you could almost play solo those two and you'd go, oh yeah, that's the rhythm section for Alter Bridge. They just have a real thing. And obviously Mark has a thing that he does with his guitar playing and his vocal, and the same thing with we just have our deal, and when it comes together, this is Alter Bridge.
And that's what makes it. So let's get to this now. This is track 9, Last Man Standing. Primordial Radio, that is track 9 from the new Alter Bridge album, Pawns and Kings with Last Man Standing. I'm here with Myles and Mark from the band. And guys, it has been such a pleasure to speak to you today and go through the album. We have the title track left to play. But before we get there, you do have a massive UK arena tour, which is coming up in December. But I have to ask, at this point, the fact you've done multiple arena tours now and you've sold out the likes of the O2, which is absolutely massive. Surely, are you knocking on the door of the likes of Download and other big festivals going, we're the festival headliner that everyone is crying out for, we're the new festival headliner? Because I'm looking at it and going, you guys, you're out there, you're doing it, you're filling these big arenas. It's got to happen, right?
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Well, hopefully that would change, but
we can't complain. We've had such a great career over here, and when you're direct support for Iron Maiden or Metallica, it's still such a rush for us. So we'll take what we can get and just hope for the best, and just thankful for the huge fan base we have here.
Yeah, absolutely.
If the opportunity did come though, where you had a chance to headline Download, do you think that you would be ready to step up and and be that headline band if the opportunity came?
Myles would have to buy some new outfits, and we'd have to probably bring in a 90-piece orchestra, and whatever it is, we'd have to figure out something to make it more, something to make it special.
Yeah, I think it would help us up our game. it would be exciting. Yeah, I would buy. I'll tell you what, if that were to happen, I would buy a special outfit just for download.
I think there we go. Special outfit, orchestra. It's there, ready in the making. Andy Coppin, come on, man. Let's get it done. So yeah, the tour is coming up in December. The new album Pawns and Kings is out today via Napalm Records. So be sure to go out, get a copy, stream it, vinyl, however you want to get the album. Just go out there and grab a copy today. So we're going to finish on the title track now, which is Pawns and Kings. So how did ultimately the song and the title of the album, how did this all sort of piece together? How did you come onto this title for the album and this track?
Well, it's interesting because that was the track that almost wasn't for this record. That was a track that I'd been chipping away at in my studio for quite a while, and just didn't feel like it was refined enough to put up on our file sharing thing, right? So after we were in the studio doing pre-production, and we thought we had all the songs, our producer and manager were like, hey, does anybody, do you have any other ideas you didn't submit? And I kind of sheepishly said, well, I've got this dog, and they're like, oh, well, we like that. We should really chase that down. So that's it's very interesting, is that's why sometimes it's best to just lay everything out, because you never know if there might be something that people are connecting with. As far as the Pawns and Kings title, that's one of those things where it kind of has multiple meanings. I feel like there's a real David and Goliath aspect to it, where it's the idea of the little guy can, you may be facing adversity that seems just incredibly the gravity of the situation may be overwhelming, but the idea that you can, it's that empowerment that you can overcome it. And it's interesting because I remember sitting playing that chorus and just humming the melody, and that's what kind of the universe kind of dropped in my lap. I just, for all of the hope that it brings, though we're pawns, we could be kings. And I didn't know what that really meant at the time, but then once you spent time kind of massaging the song, it started to come into view that this could be a song.
It's a song that feels reflective of society today somewhat. I feel like we do live in a world of the haves and the have-nots, and that gap just keeps getting wider and wider and wider. So I kind of feel like Pawns and Kings almost sort of taps into that feeling that is out there in the world today. Yeah,
that's a good way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are going to finish now with the title track. This is track 10 from the album Pawns and Kings, with Myles and Mark from Alter Bridge. Guys, it has been such a pleasure. Congratulations on an outstanding album, which is out today, and best of luck with the tour. And we'll see you headlining Download, right?
Yes, I hope so. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, guys.
Primordial Radio.